Did you know that most people who practice their religion, their faith is in the actual religion or the scriptures or the relationship, but their faith is actually in the authority of whomever teachings they have come under, or whatever translations that they read. This was something that I thought about and considered just the other day when I did a live, and on that live, I posted the two Christian people who was arguing against each other, reading the same scripture, and they still couldn't come to an agreement. And one of the reasons why they couldn't come to an agreement is because they have different faiths and different authorities. Stay to the end, and you'll understand why and what I'm talking about. You see, at one point of the video, the young lady wants a scripture to be read, and that was like Genesis 5, I believe. But when I started reading Genesis 5, since they were struggling to find it, she said, whoa, what version is that? What version? And I said, well, it's the NIV version. Oh, well, that version is not acceptable. Well, I read the King James version. So what she basically told me is that she does not accept the authority of the NIV version because that's not scripture, according to her. But she does accept the authority of the King James version. For her, that is true. That is God's true word. But it's not really God's true word. It's that she accepts the authority. And it reminded me of how people would sometimes come on my page and ask, what's your source? What's your source? Do you read Hebrew? Do you read Latin? Do you read Koine Greek? Do you read Aramaic? If you don't read those, then how do you know that the translations that you're reading? When I talk about the Sumerian story, do you read cuneiform? Because if you can't read cuneiform, how do you know those stories is exactly what they say they are? If you don't read the hieroglyphics, the meta-netures, then how do you know the Egyptians are saying, well, you're trusting in a white man, is the one that I get from the black racists. You're trusting in a white man, whereas are they not doing exactly the same? The reason why I say they're doing exactly the same, but then they hold theirs differently because of their faith in the authority. When a person comes to me and they say that they read from the King James version, when I hear the Hebrew Israelites standing on the corner and they're quoting the King James version, what they are trusting in, well, first they say that King James, they say proclaim that King James was black, but recognize King James had 52 or 54 scribes that participated in the translation of the Bible into Old English, and they were using the Vulgate and the Septuagint as well as other Aramaic writings, which means you are trusting in those 52, 54 people's authority to translate correctly from Latin to English, from Koine Greek to English, from Hebrew or Aramaic to English. You're not trusting in the actual writing, you're trusting in their authority of translation. If you're looking at the Vulgate, you're trusting in the authority of those who wrote the Vulgate from the Septuagint and the Aramaic. If you're trusting the Septuagint, you're trusting in the authority of those to translate from the Septuagint, from the Aramaic and the Hebrew to the Koine Greek. And I said the Latin of Septuagint written in Koine Greek. So Koine Greek to Latin. And then if you're trusting in the Aramaic, you're trusting in the translation, the authority of the translation from the ancient Hebrew and the Proto-Hebrew into the Aramaic. And if you're trusting in, since she specifically said Genesis 5, if you're trusting in the authenticity of Genesis 5, then you're trusting in the authority of Hezekiah in the 500 BCE of his either translation of Proto-Hebrew text or the storytelling of people that came before, the oral tradition. You're trusting in the authority of the oral tradition. So at no point is any of these people actually trusting in some divine divinity, but yet they are trusting in the authority of the people who translated the information or who gave the information. And you're trusting in their authority because they claim that they were inspired by Yahweh, by El, to write this down. That's the trust that you actually have. That's the faith that they actually have. Even in the given example, more modern day example, when a person tries to debate me about the historical Jesus, when we talk about the historical Jesus, then a person will quickly bring up Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, Josephus ben Matthias. Uh, they will bring up Philo of Alexander. They are bringing up historians, politicians who did not live, nor were eyewitnesses to Jesus, but they're trusting in the authority of those who told them this story. Tacitus is trusting in the fact that Christians existed at the time. Pliny trusted in the authority that Christians existed at that time, and this is their story that they're telling. Philo is trusting in the fact that Christians exist at that time, and this is the story that they're telling. Irenaeus was a Christian, and he was based on the authority of the previous Christians and Christians, but none is based on the authenticity of seeing a Jesus that they call Christ walk around and perform any of these miracles. The four Gospels were anonymously written. The names were given later. And the canonization, you're trusting on the Nicene Council, who didn't canonize it at the Council of Nicaea, but began the process that became the canonization within the next 30 years or so after the Council of Nicaea. You're trusting on someone else's authority, someone else's doctrine, that what you believe is true and correct. Your faith is based on that. Your afterlife is based on trusting the authority of other people and not looking at nature, not digging deep within yourself, but it's what other people wrote, what other people said, what my grandma said, the church that I grew up in, the owner, the ruler, and this is beyond the transatlantic slave trade and the American slave trade. Most people in Europe became Christian out of fear. Out of fear. When Theodosius declared Christianity was going to be the religion of Rome, he did it by force. So all of Europe became Christian through force. Christianity has spread mostly through force. So it is not through the will of God, through love and peace and preaching and teaching, but by force you became Christian, whether you are heavily melanated or not. That is how you became that's how most religious people ever came into being. So just recognize that the young lady was hell-bent on King James, but not realizing that she is trusting and have her faith on 52 or 54 scribes who decided that they were going to translate the Vulgate from Latin, the Septuagint from Koine Greek, and the Aramaic into Old English so that King James can rule his own kingdom without the influence of the Catholic Pope. Because if you don't know why something is done, then you won't understand how and what they did. Let's always start with the why. And that is why King James did it. And if he did it for political reason, that is not, could not, should not lead you to believe that King James was inspired by the God that you claim that you worship. So with that, y'all have a great day. Remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.